All right, our first successful wheelchair day has been accomplished. Of course, as you notice, our ATP and RTS both skipped out on us. They usually skip out on the stuff that requires them being acknowledged for something. So a few things we learned today. One is that, let me talk about the chairs that we used for demo purposes. In the manual chairs, we had a K4, which was an Invicare 9000 XT with quick release axles. It's considered a K0004, which is a high-strength, lightweight wheelchair with Medicare coding. It is a rental chair. The other two manual wheelchairs we had, one would be a K5 chair, which is an ultra-lightweight chair, folding frame, and that was an Invicare ProSpin X4. And the last one we had was a Sunrise Quickie GT, and that is a rigid frame chair, more sport-type chair. I would say, in power-wise, we had a Pride Jazzy Select Elite, for the basic Group 2 consumer power with a high back, and then complex-wise we had a Quantum Q6000Z with power tilt and power seat elevate. We had a Comfort Company Active Back on it and a Comfort Company Vector cushion on it as well. So overall, I would say in the manual wheelchairs, I found definitely the best to be the Quickie GT. It was extremely lightweight. I could propel it very easily. It actually fit me pretty well, if you can see in the videos. When I lowered my hands down to my side, my middle fingertip actually fell right at the center of the axle, which is perfect. It could have been adjusted a little bit more center of gravity, and also could have had a little bit better just overall fit, but overall it was pretty nice. And I really enjoyed it. I could have used some camber in it as well. It was just 0 degrees. So again, that goes back to Angel's point of being assessed and properly assessed for the wheelchair. It makes a huge difference. Definitely the least favorite was the K4. I've never spent a day in a wheelchair besides today, and the K4 wheelchair was absolutely horrible. And I'm shocked at how many K4 wheelchairs I've put out in my career as an assistive technology professional. And how many people actually order standard wheelchairs, rental wheelchairs, just really shocks me. I couldn't imagine using that every day. So I think I get a new philosophy on why so many people see a commercial on TV and call them for a basic power chair. Probably they had a rental wheelchair delivered to them that was not optimally configured, and they just couldn't use it. You know, we're on a tile floor surface here, and everything's very accessible, and it was still hard to use, and it was still hard to access. Some specifics that I had. One is, in the K4, it's just had a ton of cons. It's not adjusted properly at all. My fingertip fell probably almost 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches past the middle of axle. And of course, as you know, in a K4 wheelchair, you cannot adjust that axle forward or backwards in space. It's only up or down 2 inches. And so I really struggled with that. I felt like I couldn't get good propulsion. Actually, when I propelled, I felt like a granny. I really felt like an old lady. I found myself making very short strokes and hanging onto the handrails instead of a racing type propulsion like I could in the Quickie. The foot riggings, they were standard swing-away foot riggings, made it very hard to access different places. Even getting underneath the table was extremely difficult. It required so much more room. Of course, it was heavier. It was a lot heavier to propel. We intentionally did that without a cushion, just kind of see the difference between a cushion, between having a basic cushion and not having a cushion. And I think everybody's experience would definitely say that if you're in a wheelchair, you need a cushion to sit on. Even if it's just a basic cushion, what a difference it makes. Also, the back was too high on the K4 chair, and I know we could replace that back with some kind of aftermarket back. However, I really noticed that that's what most people get. It's just a nylon upholstery on a K4 chair. And overall, I could not get my scapulars to protrude through that, and it kept blocking them, which made it even harder to propel. So that's a lot of things against you already. And I would have liked to have some kind of adjustment of the back angle. So with that being said, I'll move on to the Quickie GT, which was my favorite. I did not try the ProSpin X4, the folding frame. Amy Elliott hogged it all day, because as you noticed, that was her favorite. So I had to go with the Quickie GT, which I absolutely loved. One thing that I found, I could not actually fit it in my office between my desk, and that just has to do with accessibility, which we'll talk about later. Also, I had to continually put on brakes or continually roll, and I think it's just our floor is a little uneven in our offices. And I imagine it's probably like that in most people's homes, unless they're on carpet, which would probably help hold it in place some. My back also started hurting. I definitely could have used an assessment for a proper back, or could have taken the time to actually put on a proper back. And I couldn't get close to the table at the end. where the little part comes out underneath the table. If it has a block there, it was hard for me to get through. Overall, though, it rode extremely easy. It was pretty much configured pretty good to me. Pretty good setup. It could have been more narrow, and I'd like to have some camber and other things I've already mentioned. Much easier to get over obstacles. I could do a good wheelie real quick and get the propulsion tires on some of the thresholds we have here in the office. That was nice. Of course, it was extremely lightweight. I imagine transporting it would be very easy. And I like the squeeze, whereas Amy didn't like it. I like having the squeeze in the wheelchair, and that's just a preference for everybody. But I liked having that center of gravity push me back in the chair. It kind of helped me not have to work as hard to stay seated. Definitely had a different view. We'll talk about that in a minute. Couldn't reach certain items. It was very hard to carry a drink in a manual wheelchair, especially if you did not have a lid on it. I struggled deeply with that. I got some coffee, and it was very hard. If it was full, it's very hard not to spill it, and you had to take your time considerably. And just, it was just overall, it was hard to see things. If you had a big box you was trying to carry, you couldn't see around it. So that was pretty much my synopsis of manual wheelchairs. And again, I'm embarrassed to think how many K4 wheelchairs I put out in my life, and I think there's just a lot of education that needs to be done with that. And I can see how so many basic power chairs get put out because optimally configured manual wheelchairs are not provided when they're needed. I would say power wheelchairs is extremely easy to get around. You get around much faster. The basic power chair, again, is just basic. It's not the most comfortable thing to sit in. There's not a lot of adjustment, so if you have some kind of asymmetries or body dimensions that don't fit, if you're tall or if you was real short, you would have a hard time with a basic power chair. Also, access to things like underneath desks and tables was a little difficult. The basic power chair was better for that when I was in the complex because it had the tilt and seat elevate. Especially the seat elevate, it raises the seat to floor height, and I couldn't even hardly stand in it at all, or sit in it at all. I had a hard time getting underneath even the regular table because of that. So it does turn easy. Of course, it turns on a dime. Of course, there's no work on your body whatsoever in a power chair. For me, it was actually harder to get in tight spaces with the power chair. I actually could maneuver better in the manual chair, and definitely not as much damage was done in a manual chair. That's kind of what I would say. I would say manual versus power now. A big issue to always ask is transport. If you're thinking basic power or a K5 ultra lightweight, the biggest issue is going to be transport, because to get a power chair around, you've got to have some kind of vehicle accessibility for that. Either some type of lift or a modified vehicle that can actually get the power chair in and dock it. Of course, a K5 chair, whether it's folding or rigid, it's very lightweight. You transport that yourself in about anything. So that's a big plus for that. I would say also completing daily living. There's pros and cons to both of them. Depending on your home environment, depending on if you work, kind of like what Amy was talking about, how active you are. If you're very active and still have upper extremity strength, definitely want to stick with the manual chair, K5. But however, if you're not, if you're homebound and you're going to be in the same environment all the day, definitely want to look at maybe a power chair, because you can get around faster and complete your daily living activities probably much better. In conclusion, I would say that I've definitely had my eyes open for K4s, and and of course, with rental chairs, that's the best you can get. That's a high strength, lightweight, and it's sad to think how many patients get and how many clients get K1, the heavy, non-adjustable at all wheelchairs in this nation. I mean, it's a sad thought to me. And again, I think that definitely plays into the fact of people get it home and can't use it, and they deal with that for maybe a month or so, and people's nature is they want to be independent. And so they see the commercials on TV, and of course they get that. Of course, that plays right into the second part with you have to be assessed by a professional. Even a manual wheelchair can be a great tool for independence if it is assessed and prescribed appropriately. However, just height and weight is not going to get that. As you've seen just from our examples today, it was different for everybody, depending on what they had. So I think assessment and the usage of it makes a big difference in long-term use. Also, just myself, I found that environment makes a huge issue in your ability to use the equipment that you're prescribed. It's not just about the assessment and the fitting of it. It is also what environment are you using it in. For us here at this office, it's very open. It was very easy to do things, but it was still things had to be adjusted. If I was to use my office, I would have to have somebody redo my office if I was in a wheelchair. Also, things like getting to the counter was hard because it was so high up. the fax machine that had to reach up over you. Just eye level with your peers was a big issue. Socially, that was a huge thing. You know, if everybody was standing up, staring down at you, it makes you feel a little insecure. Just the automatic response of even our delivery drivers for FedEx and UPS, who know us very well, automatically noticing chairs instead of us, was a wake-up call. So I see that we got a lot of work to do, but at Independence on Wheels, we definitely want to do our part and continue to learn what it is our clients are going through and try to understand their world the best that we can. And I know this is just a working day. We're far from what it's like to be in it day and night, every day, and deal with the social ramifications of that and how that affects you lifelong. But I think we got a glimpse into it, and we want to continue to grow, we want to continue to make it better for our clients that we serve, and give them the best at what they can to keep them independent, because that is everybody's nature and everybody wants to be that way. So thank you for watching our video of Wheelchair Day, and we plan on doing this again and having more fun and trying out some other equipment, and look forward to a lot more stuff coming from Independence on Wheels. Thank you so much. See you later.